room is, and that's exactly why you were invited. Because what's going on with public education right now has the potential of totally dismantling public schools as we know it. So if people like us, the ones who make sure things are done and get the job done, if we don't stop it, fix it, or throw it out, no one else is going to. So we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And just a couple of things of business. If you need the ladies' room or men's room, there's numbers on the board to look for to direct you how to get there. Before you leave, in case you leave before the event is over, there are bags outside that we would like you to please take one with you, a gift bag for joining us tonight. We also, any union president who's here this evening, we have signs here.
I'll be down the way.
Every election, every member, every vote counts. So please make sure you take enough to cover all of your faculty rooms in each of your buildings. Okay, please. Yes. Oh, were you just saying hi?
No,
and then I have a few introductions I want to make. We're fortunate to have Andy Pilata, Executive Vice President from And I'd like to introduce Matt Jacobs, our Regional Director. We have two labor relations specialists joining us this evening, Steve Clements and PJ Tchaikovsky. And scattered among you are TALI members. TALI stands for Take Action Long Island. We actually were formed over 2 years ago now, out of fear of what the tax cap was going to be doing to our public schools. And we band together to do what we could to educate our own members, to educate parents, to educate communities and politicians about what the true meaning behind the tax cap is. And then along came the testing, and along came the Common Core, and we saw the damage that that was going to do. So we couldn't sit back and allow another thing that has such devastating potential on our public schools to continue without our input, because as I said, we are busy people like you are, and because we want to get the job done. So before I will go on to the speakers, because we hope to have a chance for dialogue. We're hoping that you will speak up, ask questions. There's a lot of information out there on both topics, the testing, three topics I should say, the testing, Common Core, and the tax cap. And that's why we wanted you here today. So I'm going to first introduce our first speaker tonight, and it's Jeannette Deutermann. First and foremost, she's the parent of two boys, 7 and 10, at the North Belmore School District, right? Yes. Jeannette is also the founder of the Long Island Opt-Out Facebook page that currently has over 11,000 members. And she is also co-founder of New York Allies for Public Education. Jeannette's passion is actually fueled by the fact that she's a mother. The other two things are important, but the fact of what she was seeing happening to her own sons in school has driven her to be one of the foremost speakers on what is happening with the testing and the Common Core and everything behind it. And we have all, those of us who've been fortunate enough to hear Jeannette, love her message and how she presents it and the research she does. So I would like you to help me welcome Jeannette Deutermann.
Hi. So this is a little different crowd than I'm used to. Usually I do either union groups or I do parent groups, so this is a little bit of a mix. So I'm going to be covering some things that I really want to cover things so that the parents can understand what's going on. It's really hard when you hear all this stuff. It's very overwhelming, and even for teachers who, I've gone into union meetings, and a lot of them have not, you don't even have the real grasp of what is actually happening, especially those of you that are in the high schools, to know what is actually going on in the elementary schools, which is really where we're seeing the greatest impact of these policies. So what I decided to do is do something a little different than how I normally talk, and first of all stick to my notes, so because when I don't, I just keep going. So I'm going to force myself to follow what I have here. But I want to do really like a good news and bad news. I'm going to start with the bad news, and I'm going to go through what's going on today, and then I'm going to go into what we're doing and the effect that we've had on some of the things that are going on and the actions that we're taking and our involvement in this. So my first set of bad news is the Common Core curriculum. You know, if you go back to how this all started, and we know No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top continued it. This was a way that the federal government offered to states to have money. They dangled some carrots in front of the different states and said, if you comply with these mandates, you set up an APPR and the testing and adopt the Common Core curriculum, you can get all this money. New York jumped at it, so did a lot of other states, and that's sort of what has led us now to where we are. What I'm not going to go too far into, because it's just even more so, is what's behind all this and what's the driving forces. And a lot of you know that it's really a corporate reform movement. And it's the takeover of public education. The corporations sort of realized that this was an untapped, uncharted territory that they could make some money off of. And they decided to go for it, and they certainly did. My belief, sometimes is a little different than some other activists in this movement. I don't necessarily think Common Core is the devil. I think that the standards themselves are okay. I think the ideas behind them are okay. I don't feel that in and of itself it is the destruction of our entire system. I do believe, though, that the implementation has completely distorted any possible way that this could benefit our kids. I think that it's, again, worse in the lower grades, and I think Common Core for some of the upper grades, I've heard a lot of teachers, you know, when I'm doing what I'm doing, which is, you know, I listen to teachers all the time. I have teachers that email me, I have teachers that message me, teachers that write on my page. And I listen, because I feel that that was the missing component in all these mandates and policies that got put into place, is the educators were missing in it. And knowing that, I didn't want to go ahead and push for my own agenda and what I felt should be done without knowing how the teachers felt about it. And what I've generally heard is that, you know, the upper grades, that they don't feel that it's all that disruptive, that it's much of the same of kind of what they've been doing before. A lot of them don't like how scripted it is in the modules, but yet the material isn't so, you know, bad for the kids that they're teaching. Then the elementary school is a whole different ballgame. What I hear from teachers generally is that it's age inappropriate. I hear things about the modules taking all creativity out of the classroom. A lot of times it seems like this really comes down to leadership. It comes down to administrative issues, because when you have an administrator that pushes for the modules to be done, you know, 100%, no differentiation, I've had teachers tell me that their administrators walk into their classrooms, and if they're not following a module, word for word, scripted, that they're in trouble. So that's a problem, because again, when you have leadership that's able to say to the teachers, yes, we know this is a drag, we know this, not all this stuff works. I know in my district they work really hard to make sure that they, you know, look at each module and weed out the ones that aren't working, and not just use it all as one big package. But that's the problem, is that many schools are not doing that. Many schools are pushing for the whole package because they're afraid. They're afraid about test grades, and they feel that they just need to use it all just in case, and they don't want to leave anything out, and they want to keep it all there. The other problem with Common Core is the way that especially the modules are worded. The math problems are very difficult to understand. They're very convoluted. The teachers will say, why do they have to make it so difficult? Like, you you can do this math problem without making it so that it's, you know, you have to do 5 other different steps to get to that answer, when really it's appropriate for 2 steps. You know, we don't need to have all those 5 steps. The other problem is the parents. It's such a different way of learning the math. I have a college degree. My son, my 5th grader, I can't help him with math. He brings home math dittos, and I have no idea what these things are, and the wording is different, the way it's being done is different, and the kids get frustrated when they say to their parents, can you help me with this? I don't know how to do it. And we say, no, I can't help you with this. I have no idea what this is, because, you know, they don't bring home, they don't have textbooks that are coming with this. The modules are not set up that way. So in the past, you'd have homework with a textbook and you'd be able to see what you were doing and follow along with it. This is not the way it is set up now. Now it's a homework sheet that is like reading Chinese, and we're expected to help our kids with that. So there's a lot of frustration, and a lot of parents, I know in my house, and most of the friends I have where their kids often cry during homework. My son, you know, now I work really hard to change the atmosphere with him, where if he gets frustrated, that's it, the homework goes away, we're done. So I have to work very hard to keep that frustration away from him, but it's still there, and I went through all of last year with him crying almost every night over his homework. And again, I always say to people, he's not an emotional child. So it was very alarming for me to see this boy who's never been emotional to be breaking down and crying almost nightly doing his homework, because he couldn't do it and I couldn't help him, and he was frustrated, and he continually said to me, I'm just stupid, I can't do it. And this is what many parents on my site, I mean, the parent after parent after parent, just hundreds of them, saying the same thing, that their kids all feel stupid. And that's the problem. When you have a system in place that the kids are just feeling like failures. And that's really why we're all here, is because that's the effect it's having on a lot of these students. See, I'm already not following the notes. Okay, another bad. Teachers are still being vilified. They feel unsupported, mistreated, bullied, mostly by the SED and the mandates that are coming out of the state ed department. They are continually sort of being set up for this whole, that teachers are the bad guy. That's kind of how they push the whole thing through, is by saying, we need to get rid of all these really bad teachers, as if there's just so many bad teachers out there. And how are we going to do this? Well, guess what, parents? We have the cure for all your bad teachers. We're going to set up these plans, these APPR plans, and now we're going to be able to get rid of them. 1, 2, 3. See that? We can circumvent bad tenure. We can do all this and fix this. And the parents that aren't really aware of the way things actually work in the schools said, oh, yay. You know, because for years, Newsday and other media outlets were continually giving that bad message about tenure. Oh, this tenure. We can't ever get rid of a bad teacher. And now the state ed department has taken advantage of that whole culture that was basically set up that way over years. And that's, when I started my Facebook page, that was one of the first things that I said, along with the goal of reducing the testing, stopping the testing, stopping APPR. One of our goals was to change the attitude about teachers, and to change that mindset that parents always have, where they initially blame the teacher and then they go from there. But you know, we're really trying to, I have a strict, we call it a no bashing teacher policy on the site, and the minute there's a comment on there or a post or anything that somebody says that just seems like they're just ragging on teachers, it comes down. And we don't, that's just because whether or not it's true, whether or not, you know, the teacher was out of line, we try to make it so that we just don't want to set up that whole kind of, because then it snowballs on itself. You know, with this whole thing, administrators, they're sort of in a whole other category, and some administrators we've had to go after, but I feel like sometimes they deserve it. But they don't mess with us. Okay, so that leads me to APPR. Honestly, I have always felt that the APPR system is, when you talk about an evil entity, it is. That really, to me, is the crux of the problem. Even the testing, as bad as it is, and as much as I hate the testing, I hate APPR more. Which may sound strange because I'm a parent and not an educator, but I see the damage that APPR is doing. I see how it's changing our classrooms, and I see how everything now is all based on the evaluation of the teacher, the testing. The reason the testing has completely taken over our classrooms is because teachers are evaluated based on them. When you go into private schools that are still using the state assessments, I know I've spoken to a number of them where, yes, we do use the state assessments because some of the parents want to have the kids take it and see it and just get used to them when they for when they go. I'm talking about elementary school, but because their teachers are not evaluated based on them, it really is not a big deal. It's not something that kids don't even really hear about the test until right before the tests are taken. They don't focus on it. The whole curriculum isn't geared towards it. They don't have to narrow everything to just ELA and math. They do a wide range of all the other subjects, and again, it's because they don't evaluate their teachers based on it. So it's a whole different story. I feel that APPR has completely destroyed any possible diagnostic use of tests. Any chance that any test has to be used diagnostically is out the window if you attach APPR to it. Local assessments. For those of you, the parents, this is always usually the one major thing that parents really don't know about. And that's because the schools really do not inform parents at all. I had never been informed of what assessments my son was taking. We knew about the state assessments in the spring. I had never known that they took anything else besides that. Local assessments are part of the APPR plan. They're set up, the way APPR works is 60% is based on real and accurate measurements, observations in the classroom, peer reviews, things like that. And each district sets up exactly how their formulas work out. The other 40% is based on testing. So now you have 20% based on usually the state assessments, and the other 20% based on local assessments for most districts. Now, I'm saying most but I won't tell you until I get to the good news part. So just keep that in mind. So most districts will use the 20% for local assessments. So now you have these locals. The locals are, if you've heard of now, a lot of people have started to hear about them because we are pushing for districts to inform parents. We inform parents what tests their districts are taking. Most of the times parents will message me and say, okay, Levittown, what local assessments are they taking? And then I tell them, instead of them being able to ask their school, which is completely ludicrous. But these local assessments are the NWEA or MAP tests, Ames Web, STAR assessments. Those are all computerized. Those are the classroom tests for the classroom teachers. So the K teacher, the kindergarten teacher, first grade, second grade, they take these computerized tests. The tests get harder as the students answer the questions correctly. They get easier as they answer them incorrectly. The test ends early if they continue to answer questions wrong. Kids have figured that out. There's a lot of kids that have figured out that, hey, if I get it wrong, the test is done and I can go to recess. We're out of here. Other teachers have told me stories of how there was band practice out on the field that day. So the whole class bombed the MAP test. Okay, now the reason why this is such a problem is because schools are using this for their RTI, which is the, what's that stand for? Okay, which is a way to determine which kids need services from the start. Before the state assessments start, they need a way to figure out which kids need services. AIS services are determined based on these local assessments. So again, now we're basing what kids need what service on a computerized test that may or may not be accurate. Schools will say, well, we've been using them. I was sitting in a Massapequa Board of Ed meeting, and the superintendent said, oh, well, we've been using that math test since before the APPR plan, so you should take them because that's a very good way for us to know what the kids need. And I say, but before the APPR, then it could be used diagnostically. Because then maybe it could have been given in a way where you ensure that the kids have a quiet space and whatever. Now, because of APPR, the kids have to show growth. So they have to do better in the spring than they did in the fall. Which means that most teachers, unfortunately, have to, and I don't blame teachers for this, and no, thank God, no parents have blamed teachers for this. Teachers generally say, don't worry about it, just take whatever, just answer however you want, because they need to ensure that the students don't do well in the fall, so that they can have growth in the spring and maintain their 20% of their APPR plan. Same thing for the SLOs, which are for the other teachers, the gym teacher, art teacher, music teacher. They have to give exams because they need their APPR also. So now they give an exam in the fall, they give an exam in the spring, sometimes even in the winter and then the spring. But again, they have to fail in the fall in order to show growth in the spring. So all teachers will tell you, yeah, we make it so ridiculously hard in the fall to make sure that they can show growth, because God forbid a kid does well in the fall, now you're screwed. So, they don't take that chance. Spanish test, this is the thing that everybody finds completely insane, but Spanish, the SLO for Spanish is given in Spanish to the first year Spanish class. Okay, well that's a guarantee. But, this is what we're doing. Now, I talk about it like, oh, this is just so crazy, and can you imagine what a crazy system. But when we really look at how this is affecting the kids, we as adults can say, oh, this system just doesn't work and it's insane. But for the kids, now you're talking about little kids who are taking all of these exams, failing them, and they know they failed them. They know they don't know any of the answers. So they start off their school year, some of them failing up to 8 exams in the first couple weeks of school. How do you think that kid feels when they know that they can't, and so they start off already? And even when the teachers say, don't worry about it, this doesn't count, it doesn't mean anything, don't get upset, you know that you do have children that will be upset regardless of what you say to them. I know my son. I could say to him, don't worry, it doesn't mean, I've said that, you're not stupid, don't worry about it. Yeah, I am. It doesn't matter what I say. He still internalizes how he feels about how he did on this. So again, that's the danger in this, that this is setting these kids up to feel like failures. Okay, and then they continue on with the Common Core lessons, and then it just compounds on itself. Another bad thing. Now the teacher ratings are being published. Now I've had mixed information that's been told to me. I know that they've done that in the past. They've published the school ratings, but from what I understand, and maybe even you guys could clarify for me, that now they're even doing sort of individual teacher, in that they will say teacher A, teacher B from such and such school.
No, what I'm hearing is a parent can actually call the district
That too. Yes.
and get the specific number
Yes.
that they received on their
They
APPR.
can know the actual teacher's score. So now I've had administrators say to me that I don't care, they can fire me, there's no way I'm releasing this score.
We would argue that the districts had a choice. They could publish every teacher's score on their website for total transparency, or they could do it on a case-by-case basis in which if a parent called, they could give them the score, but students could not be moved
Once they
based
get
on
the
the
score.
score.
Right, so, so the concept is, okay, well, we're only telling them that their actual teacher's score, so this really shouldn't be an issue. Okay, what elementary school do you know where every parent isn't out on the playground saying, hey, guess what so-and-so got, and guess what so-and-so got, and oh, I don't want her, yeah, no, you don't want her because she got this and she got that. Okay, this is like setting up a system that they are going to have a complete nightmare, and the state ed says, personally, I feel like they're doing it as a, oh yeah, you want to mess with us, this is what we're going to do to you. That's my personal opinion. But they get to sit back and just let you guys all deal with, and the administrators deal with the fallout from all these scores going up. And then, you know, they make a big deal out of, hey, these scores don't mean anything this year, or whatever. Okay, so why are you publishing them? Why are you putting them out there then?
How do they improve instruction?
Okay.
How do they improve instruction? How are they good for anything?
Okay, now I want to talk just a minute about, and if I'm going over like my time.
I'll stand up.
Because really, I could go on and on.
I know.
And I haven't even gotten to the good parts. Okay. All right, the emotional toll of these tests. I unfortunately get to hear story after story after story. I've even done something really dumb and asked people to send me their stories because I want to really start collecting. And I feel like it also kind of helps parents sometimes when they tell their story about what has gone on with their children. We had so many horrible reports in the spring of kids that were taking these exams and what was going on. And some of the stories were from parents and some were from teachers telling us what went on in their classrooms. The biggest one was crying. Lots of kids, lots of them, sat there at their desk and just broke down crying. Sometimes it was because the testing time was done and they weren't finished. Sometimes it was just the stress of the test there and they just break down. They couldn't take it. We heard a report of an administrator who had to get on the loudspeaker and announce to the whole school to calm them down, like to say stuff into the loud, to try to, because classroom after classroom, it was like going like a domino effect. They were hearing kids in another class crying, and then they start crying, and then another class starts crying, and it spread through the school. Kids were vomiting on their tests. There was a report of a student who vomited on the test. They had to pack the test up and still send it away up to the state. Good. Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's an idea for this spring. Epicac, yeah, we could put a little Epicac in the I heard reports of shaking from parents and teachers saying that their kids were just trembling in fear the morning of, when they sat down for the test. A lot of kids were refusing to eat in the morning before the test, refusing to eat the night before the test, losing sleep. A number of parents told me that their kids kept waking up for like a month before the test, kept waking up in the middle of the night and coming down to them and saying, you know, what if I do bad on the test? And what's going to happen if I don't do good? And so they were actually losing sleep over this. There was a number of reports of kids that were going into the bathrooms and locking themselves in, and they wouldn't come back out. To the extreme, we heard of the report of a teen suicide after the first day of the ELA exam that from teachers that had contacted me was related to the testing. Again, we're not talking about college exams, SATs, you know, this pressure on these little kids, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, is unbelievable. And again, you know, yes, the pressure partly comes from teachers, but their careers are riding on these test scores. So even if a teacher does everything they can to hide their, you know, their anxiety and fear over test scores, it still comes out. And you know, kids pick up on that stuff so easily. The third grade ELA and math assessment is longer hours than the SATs, the MCATs, and the New York bar exam. So these 8-year-olds sit for longer time than all those exams. Another horror story, a bright third grader. I was told, a teacher told me that she didn't finish the test on time, and they could not console this girl. She was just rocking back and forth in her chair, just repeating over and over that I didn't finish the test, I didn't finish the test. The kindergarten students, teachers, I've heard it from a few teachers where when they bring the timer out, that the kids start crying. It's like a Pavlov experiment. They know that an assessment's coming, and the timer comes out, and the kids freak out. I've heard a couple different cases of different kindergarten teachers that do different things to hide the timer and not let the kids see it, and it's like, this is insanity. I just can't even. Okay, so now let me get into refusing the test. We had a lot of people refuse a test last year. I'm going to get into that in the good part. But as far as the bad stories, when it came to refusals, and this is where, when I go into union meetings, this is where I ask for help. We really need to start putting pressure on administration to handle refusals in a more humane way. You know, all these things that I'm talking about the effects to these little kids, it's a no-brainer that a parent would not want their children being part of this. I mean, for me, there is no way, I don't care what the consequences are. As of right now, there really aren't any for the student. Even if there were, my kid would still not be taking this test. There's just no way. And what we need to do is make sure that, that when a parent makes that decision, I mean, you know, here we're hearing at hearings, the Senate hearings, all these forums, administrator after administrator, they all get up there and talk about how harmful these tests are. And we have school psychologists and, you know, all saying that this is so bad for these kids. But yet, when a parent says, well, we're not doing it, then it's all of a sudden, oh, no, wait a minute. No, you have to take it. Yeah, you have to take it. So we need to start figuring out a way to kind of work together on this. And all we're asking is that they honor parental rights. That it is my right as a parent to say, if this is harming my son, he's not going to take part in it. There was some really bad things that went on last year with kids that refused. One district forced a child who was refusing. He was sick, legally sick. He got sick the first day he refused, went home sick, was sick the next day. When he came in the third day, the school district, we call it sit and stare, when they're not allowing the kid to read a book, they make them sit and just stare at the walls for the whole time that their test is being given. And this one district made this child sit and stare for the 2 sessions of testing back to back. So he was taken out of when the regular class was going on. They was taken out of the class and told to make up his, even though he was refusing and they couldn't force him to take it. The kid was, you know, new enough to say, no, I'm not allowed to take this test. So they couldn't force him to take it, even though they tried. So he sat in another room for a little over 3 hours. He was forced to sit there with a teacher while the rest of the class was having a regular class session. This is the treatment that is happening as a result of a parent trying to protect their kid. When everybody's in agreement how bad this is for the kids. We had one district, you know, the way we got around a district that had a sit and stare policy, we would tell the schools, tell the parents, as soon as the kid refuses the test, go pick them up, get them out of there. So they refused it, they can't be given a makeup because they sat and refused and the test was placed in front of them. They were taken, so the parents went to go pick up their kids. One school locked the parents out. And those parents had to call the police to force them to be let in and get their kids. The school said, sorry, when the testing starts, the school's locked. We can't let you in, the room is locked, you can't disrupt the classroom. Okay, we had superintendents just recently saying that that was the cause of their poor test scores, was all these refusals. And then when we called them out on it and talked to the reporters, and the reporters got the information that the actual refusal scores don't figure into the test scores, they went back to the superintendent and said, you know, we just got different information, and he said, oh, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant is that the kids sitting there, not taking the test, just, you know, like caused a distraction for the kids taking the test, and that's why the scores are low. So these are some of the things that we have to deal with and address when these things come out. Okay. But for the most part, I would say that the majority of the districts, when the parents sent in their refusal letters, which we have on our website, refusal letters that just inform the district, my child's not going to be taking this test, the district sends we don't acknowledge opting out, there's no such thing as opting out. We tell parents, expect that you'll get that letter, because that's to prove to the state ed, hey, we tried, we told them there was no opting out, and they still did it. So we tell them, expect that, and you know, just we expect that, and just now go speak to them in person, and generally they'll say, okay, we understand they're not going to take it, we're gonna bring them into the cafeteria and they're gonna read a book while the rest of the class is taking the test. And that's generally what went on for, I would say, well over half of the districts, is that they allowed that. Our district, they rounded the kids up, brought them into the cafeteria, and they read while the rest of the class was taking the test. A lot of districts, though, forced the kids to refuse themselves. They wouldn't accept parental letters, phone calls, anything. They made the 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and 10-year-old say to the teacher, I'm not going to take this test. Ways around that, we gave parents, told parents to have a note to hand to the teacher, so the kid could just hand the teacher a note instead of actually having to verbally go against the teacher and refuse themselves. But now as teachers and as union people, that's another thing that you could help facilitate, where you can make it easier for the parents, for the kids, and if your administrator insists that the child has to verbally refuse, well, make it easy on the parent. Say, don't worry about it. I know they're not taking it, so I'm not going to expect them to really, give me this whole, no, I'm not taking the test. Have the understanding going on with the parent. We also recommend to the parents that they bring the student into the classroom with the teacher and weeks before the test, and talk to the teacher in front of the child about it. I don't want him taking it. We want to make sure it's okay with you. He's worried that you'll be mad at him, so we want, and that's how another way to get around, the kids feeling too nervous and scared.
In my experience, some teachers are worried and have been told that it's considered insubordination.
To
Agree with the parent, or say to the parent, yes, that is your option, if you're going against what your district philosophy is.
Right, so the teachers have to be very careful in knowing who their administrators are, how they can talk to the parent. There's a lot of teachers that will, they'll get around it by saying, well, technically, I can't tell you, you can't, they'll say it in a way where the parent's like, okay, and we tell parents, don't force the teacher to say they agree with you or not agree with you. It's not a matter of that. It's about having the teacher, when the kid's sitting there, say, I will not be mad at you. I understand that this is what your mother wants. I'm not going to be mad at you for that. So it's really, you're not even talking about opting out. You're talking about, your mother's making this decision and I'm not going to be angry at you for it. So that's really the message that we're trying to get.
I think one of the other things that's out there right now that teachers are partially informed about and probably need a little more education is the impact that these refusals have on state aid numbers for a district.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that,
Okay.
yeah. That's our biggest hurdle, is this whole state aid, that we're going to lose music and we're going to lose art if people refuse. So that's my next actual, okay? So that's the misinformation from superintendents and school administrators. The biggest one is the loss of funding. When I meet with parent groups, that's the one thing I really go over extensively. I won't get too deep into it now, it takes a while, but basically your school is not going to lose funding. The only thing that can be affected is the Title I money. Title I, first of all, can only be used for very, very specific things. It's related to the low-income districts and how much low income your district has, and that rate will have an effect on how much Title I money you actually get. That Title I money can only be used for specific things, not art, not music. It's used for, I have a whole list, but it's things related to the problem of lower income students. School lunches, the transportation costs, AIS services, and there's a few other things that I'm missing. It is not to fund your special activities. It's not to fund art. It's not to fund music or phys ed or anything like that. Even that now, that can't be taken away from you for getting less than 95%. Okay, all they can do is take 5 to 10% of your Title I money and make you hold that in a reserve. Most schools, my district, I think we get like $70,000 in Title I money or something like that, which breaks up to very little, and then per school, and then even smaller, a few $1,000s for 5 to 10%. So that has to be held in a reserve fund, and that money then has to be used for very specific things, professional development. If a child chooses to bus to a different school in the district because their school didn't meet AYP, they have to have money set aside to be able to bus that kid over. Nobody loses money. And that's the real misconception. Now, why this became this big thing of superintendents and principals saying, oh, we're gonna lose money, we're gonna lose funding. Mostly that came from the state ed department, who kept sending memos last year saying, you know, you're gonna have financial consequences. And then people called them and said, what financial? You're gonna have financial consequences. Okay, can you be specific? Districts will have financial consequences if they have less than... Nobody could get them to answer specifically what they were talking about, which is why, again, we go into documents like you would not believe. I mean, I have lawyers that are on the site that are working with us, and a lot of teachers and people that just go through these documents, myself included, and just like rip them apart. I'm so sick of the SED manuals because we really wanted to, we didn't want to be saying to people, do this, if we didn't know for sure what the consequences were, if we didn't know for sure that it was going to not be a hardship for the teachers, the schools. You know, I was not going to push for this if I thought we were going to lose our music program.
Not only have we been told that we're going to lose money, but that our schools will become a school in need, which opens another whole can of worms on what's put on our teachers and
Yeah.
on school if that happens.
Okay, now, there's also a waiver. There's a federal waiver right now. We are in the years of this federal waiver, where they have said now that we are not, that a district that was in good standing as of last year is supposed to stay in good standing now for until 2015 or two. And then what I've been told is that then they're going to offer extensions on these waivers, so now it could go on for the next, you know, handful of years. So this waiver basically really, in essence, did away with the AYP formula and how schools meet AYP, do not meet AYP, and that was to ensure that these tests that are being rolled out was not going to impact a district that performs very well normally, then now all of a sudden this district is in need of improvement. Again, none of these things were set up for the boycott. They didn't have anything in their documents that had rules for how this was going to play out with a boycott. This is all put in place so that schools weren't trying to do things like keep kids that scored low from taking the test. You know, so we used stuff that was already in place against them, but we did it in a way that, again, that it's not, you know, so when they say, oh, well, if you get less than 95, we're going to take all this stuff away from you. Well, the whole rule for 95% wasn't, you know, wasn't to punish schools that don't perform well, and, you know, it's really to help them, which is why the Title I money you have to set aside for doing more professional development, because they felt like, okay, if a school's not doing well, we need to do something, step in to help them to succeed. So it's not meant as a punishment. Now everything's changing because now all of a sudden, okay, now we got to come up with a way to punish these people because if they allow all these refusals. So we're expecting that they will come out with something, and we've heard that there is actually something very shortly that's going to be given, told to the superintendents that there's some new thing that the state's coming up with to try to stop the refusals. Even though King won't acknowledge opting out and says, oh, it's not a problem at all, nobody's opting out. He refuses to acknowledge it, but yet he's doing all this stuff on the side to try to stop it and try to combat it and he tells the supers that, you know, that they're in trouble if they don't make the kids, you know, verbally refuse, and they better make these kids take the test and all that. So,
I'm sorry, I just wanted to go back to the Title I information that you were talking about before. If you are speaking to a group in a lower income district, I'm assuming that this Title I money, even if it's 5 to 10%, is probably significantly more important to them.
They have a lot more.
Right. So what is your recommendation to them with regard to opting out? Because obviously their children are going to experience the same level of angst over the testing.
Right. Well, if you look at it in the sense, again, that the whole Title I money, putting in reserve and this and that, it's not, again, meant to take services away from a district. So there's nothing in place right now. I say that right now because we don't know what the state's going to do in the next, few months with this. As of right now, there's nothing that actually punishes and takes services away from a school if a school does not meet the 95% or does not have kids scoring well, or because again, that's not what it was set up to do. So if a school is already in need of improvement, to me, it's almost like, okay, well, they're already on that track. There's no further punishment, whereas I hear a lot of blue ribbon schools say, well, we don't want to lose that blue ribbon status, so they really want to stop the refusals, because if they don't get 95%, they might lose that blue ribbon.
But is it right to punish a parent for, I should be punished because I don't want my daughter to take the test?
Exactly, and that's,
Are they really gonna come out with something?
well, they're not going to come out, they can't come out with anything against the parents.
I know, but really they're
really-
punishing me by then, the administration, because whenever I mention it at school, I don't think one of my daughters take the test, administration and the teachers are like, oh, do you really wanna do that?
Right.
They're trying to encourage me not to do it.
Right, because everybody's afraid of the state. What could the state do? What if they, I was just talking to Tommy about one of our Massapequa meetings where Assemblyman Saladino came in, and I was just talking about Title I and all this stuff, and he said, well, okay, that's true, that they can't really do anything financially, but you know, they might remember who's responsible for what's going on, and then, you know, when it comes time for budgets, and I was like, are you kidding me?
I may have missed this because I was late, but how many children didn't take the test last year, do we know?
Okay, we had, I'm skipping into my good part, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm so determined to stick. No, but I only had confirmation of 12 out of the 120 districts, and of those 12, we had over 1,000.
Wow.
So,
But it's not a problem.
no, and we had districts there's many districts that did not meet AYP, many, and there's been no funding affected at all. So, our district, I don't know, did we meet AYP? We did? I know the,
Just tell us what AYP is.
yeah, academic,
Is it adequate?
adequate yearly progress. And that, there's a whole bunch of criteria for meeting that. It has to do with the state scores, with the 95% participation, and other things. So that was what was set up to determine, you know, how schools were categorized for meeting those things and not. And that's, if they don't meet AYP, which is not meeting the 95%, that's when these things kick in. Now, as far as being a school that didn't meet AYP and the paperwork, there is paperwork involved, and there's other things that the administrators would have to do, and filing of this and that. The first year, I believe, nothing happens. It's just, you just don't meet AYP. It has to happen a couple of years in a row. So after 2 or 3 years, then they start to kick in with, okay, now if you're in need of improvement, then they come out with paperwork that involves what your plan, you have to come up with a plan of what you're going to do to improve that. But again, this was it was supposed to be based on a school that's failing because of test scores and kids that are not doing well. It's not set up because we had these kids boycott, now we have to come up with a plan how to stop that. So we're not really sure a couple years down the line how this is going to play out with schools that consistently will have, because now this year kids refusing is going to be, you're going to see huge numbers. So I don't know, you know, that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that the numbers are so big that there's nothing they can do to stop, these tests are not going to be even able to be used for what they intended, because.
The problem is they're gonna really stir up the scare issue and
Oh,
they're
they
gonna
are.
frighten everybody.
They are. They've already started with the principals and
So
they're
it'll be
already
hard,
putting a lot
I
of
think,
pressure.
to get people
Jeanette,
on board.
I just want to ask everyone, we're going to let Jeanette finish her presentation, and so that'll give us a nice chunk of time to ask questions before John comes up, because we do have someone else to speak this evening, so if you would mind going
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, let me finish. Okay. All right. Last couple things of bad news is what's going on with John King. These the town hall meetings everybody knows about. I say I should be paying him because he has done more to promote this movement than anyone. Yeah, I mean, hats off to John King, but the more ludicrous he gets, the better it is for me, because really, I mean, the insanity that he is displaying lately is unreal. I don't know if any of you knew, if you don't know about the town hall meetings, he had scheduled a number of town hall meetings. The first one was in Poughkeepsie. It's on video. You can watch the entire thing. For an hour and 40 minutes, he lectured them. At first, he also spoke to a PTA, one of the head PTA people, and said to them that he did not want parents to speak at all. And the PTA said, that's going to be a problem for us, that parents are going to flip on us, and we can't really sign off on that. So he said, fine, I'll let them speak for a little bit. So hour and 40-minute lecture, and then he started to allow parents to get up. First parent says their comment, not a question to him, but a comment, and he had to stand up and start, rebutting everything that the parent was saying, and talk, and try to diminish everything that the parent had just said. People in the audience obviously started going crazy and screaming at him, sit down, this is our time. The next speaker got up, he did the same thing. Then the third speaker brought up the fact that his kids go to Montessori school. And the fact that his kids are not being tested the way our kids are being tested, and are not, even remotely in the same boat as ours, but yet he's saying that this is so important. Well, we don't get it. That's when he really got upset with everybody, and then eventually he stormed off the stage, shut it down. He then canceled all the rest of the meeting, because God forbid, and called everybody that was there and yelling at him and talking special interest groups.
He did appear at Senator.
Yeah, he was in Oyster Bay. Yeah. That was a closed meeting, though. That was just for that district.
I don't live in the district.
Yeah, the doors were wide open.
Yeah.
No, you could go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it wasn't closed.
But we know really that the force behind all this is Merrill Tisch, Governor Cuomo, and John King are the leaders in this whole mess. They are really the driving force behind this. Merrill Tisch almost even more so. The reason why we have chosen to go after John King is because Merrill Tisch is a tough nut to crack as far as she's not a paid employee. She is sort of appointed by the legislature and holds the position indefinitely, which now we're looking into when her actual years are supposed to be up, and trying to work through that angle on who appoints her and how we can stop the people that are appointing her from appointing her again. Let's see. All right, the cost of Common Core Local Assessments Park, again, we are now outspending the money we got from Race to the Top. This could actually bankrupt our district, all these unfunded mandates. So when you talk about, oh, well, if we have to stop this and how are we going to give back all that Race to the Top money? Well, the Race to the Top money was nothing compared to what we've spent on implementing all this. Data dashboards, that is any school district that has taken Race to the Top money specifically. We're not talking about the state Race to the Top money, we're talking about individual districts that have accepted Race to the Top money, have to implement what's called the data dashboard. Already, tons and tons of data is being uploaded into the system of your kids, and you are no longer allowed to sort of opt out or choose. They do not need parental consent for that anymore. They're sharing student names, test scores, home addresses, grades, disciplinary and attendance data, economic and racial and disability status, and program participation, including whether or not a student is entitled to special education, 504 plans, English language learner, and educational services and accommodations. This can all be sold now to third-party vendors, again, all without parental consent. The data dashboards are like data uploading on crack. It is like take the normal amount of data that has to be uploaded and times it by whatever. So there's been a number of districts that have actually given back their money because they looked at it as just something that was not feasible for them to be part of this data dashboard. Okay, let me quickly go into, do I have a few more minutes?
Few.
Okay, all right. The good news. Again, our page has over 11,300 people on it. We have other page now, from after I created this page, now we have branch offs. So we have all sorts of other Facebook pages that came off of mine. The Badass Teachers, I'm sure a lot of you know about that. Lace to the Top. There's a number of anti-Common Core sites. We also have community Facebook pages, so specific for the different districts. A lot of that came out of, I appointed liaisons. I have about half the districts signed on, People volunteered from different districts, and they are my liaisons, and they are responsible for their district getting the information out, going to Board of Ed meetings. You know, a lot of you may have seen some of the you know, if you know of one parent in particular that keeps going to Board of Ed meetings and requesting resolutions and all that, that's probably one of my liaisons. They basically are my go-between. They set up meetings. These liaisons, they're unbelievable, some of them. They have set up these meetings, like town hall meetings, and have got guest speakers lined up, and I usually do lectures at least twice a week now. They do not go through PTA usually because of the issues we've had with PTA. You know, the president, Lena, she's not a big fan, and we've had a lot of issues with her, and there's a lot of problems with what her motivations are with all of this, but she has really been, you know, she says she doesn't stop anybody from holding meetings, but generally the message that comes down from the state is we don't want to get involved in this, and we do not support any of this movement. They are definitely pro-Common Core. They are, I would almost go so far as to say, protesting, because you know, they really aren't doing much to try to stop it, or hold any kind of meetings to try and do that. Again, the town hall meetings was the first opportunity where PTA was showing that they were willing to have parents be able to voice their opinion, and obviously that didn't work out so well. We work with a lot of local PTAs though that, you know, that say, oh, and a lot of times the superintendents stop them from holding meetings as well. So I have PTA presidents and vice presidents who will have a meeting off-site at a, you know, where at a library or something. They will hold a meeting, and they don't have it through the PTA, but yet it's part, you know, it's kind of part of the PTA, and have me come speak and have other people come speak and spread this information. But we've had real big success with these meetings, because you know, some of these meetings will have 70, 100, as many people as in here, just parents from districts that come in and listen. Dr. Rella, the ComSwag superintendent, he comes with me to a lot of these and presents with me and gives the perspective from an administrator. He is like, I have to like tell him don't get in trouble, because he's really very, if you know Dr. Rella, he sent around that letter, he is very outspoken and he's amazing with all this. We also formed the New York Allies for Public Education that houses over 40 organizations all over New York State. So we basically are the umbrella for all these organizations. Students Not Scores, Change the Stakes, Class Size Matters, New York Principals Group, Port Jeff Teachers Association, those are all allies, New York State Allies for Public Education. What we do is similar to TALI, we come together, we have conference calls, and we formulate plans, action plans. So one of them was the Send the Scores Back, where we asked parents when they got their test scores to send them write invalid test scores and send them back to John King. We recently, our big action, just as of a week ago, ever since he canceled town hall meetings, we're calling for his resignation. And we got all of our allies on board so that every organization can push within their organization to do the same thing. So this is why you've heard it a lot, and it's a sweeping thing. We contact media, we try to, you know, and again, this is all parents. This is all, like, most of the allies and the people that I work with are parents. You know, we don't get paid, I don't get, you know, no compensation whatsoever. It's strictly just, I feel the need to be doing this. And so, you know, the whole special interest thing is, you know, I like it just because it's made him look so bad, but at the same time, like, it's such a tremendous insult to say that I've been sort of, I mean, I'm the one going into union meetings trying to get them to, you know, get on board with me. You know, it's not the other way around, and, you know, it's insulting to think that basically he's saying that I've obviously been corrupted by evil Nisid, and I have, you know, and that's, she must have been, you know, turned, but no. Okay, I'm working with the Assembly and the Senators. I speak to them fairly regularly. Now, I'm not dumb. I know that they want me on board with them because I have 11,300 voters in my pocket that I can tell them to vote for. So I know that that's, but I'm willing to make them think that they've got me, and really I'm making them do what I want, in knowing that I can hold that over them, that this is how many voters we've got here, and you need to start helping us out. So I have Assemblyman Chuck Levine. He set up a forum up in Glen Cove that I'm going to be speaking at, and I'm going to be doing I did the Senate hearings. They called, Flanagan had called me and asked me to present at the Senate hearings, which I did. The assembly hearing coming up soon, I'm going to be hopefully presenting at. So again, they are moving. Flanagan, we weren't sure where he was going with this, and we were hesitant on, I actually didn't even send anything to him. He called me because I was a little like, is this just a sort of Republican show, or is this actually going somewhere? But once we saw, and I spoke to a couple other senators, Democrat senators that had called me, and they said that when they saw the speakers that he asked to speak and saw how it was done, that it was clear that he's going to have this whole big stage and have speaker after speaker saying how bad this is, at the end to say, okay, everything's all right, we'll just leave it. So we feel very strongly that he's going to do something about all this. There's tons of bills being introduced. One session is in January. We're hoping that some of these bills pass. Just two other real quick things, and then I'll finish up. As far as the local assessments, when I said that they can use 20% with local assessments, there's 3 districts in New York State that chose to eliminate all local assessments. One is North Belmore, the other one's East Islip, and one is Albany. I don't know if any others were able to do it, but those are the 3 I know of. Basically what we've done is they decided, the superintendent, the union, got together and decided that lesser of 2 evils, that even though that's a hardship for the teachers because now all their 40% is based on these horrendous state assessments, it will help the kids. The teachers were sick of spending so much time in their classroom doing these local assessments, so now our kids only take the state assessments. They don't take any SLOs, nothing. And then the formula, I'm not aware of, Randy would know about the formula, how they're working out that 20%, and it's a growth score, and
It's not the same 40%. They work 2 different ways, so.
Yeah, so they formulated a different way of doing it, but bottom line is we do not have local assessments. One last thing, resolutions. Over 90 districts from across New York State have adopted resolutions, 25 just here on Long Island. Even though it doesn't result in a lot of action, it's really important. It shows the parents in the district how important it is to make a stand against high-stakes testing. It helps support the teachers. It tells the teachers that they know what they're going through. So it's something that teachers can also help push the boards to do these resolutions. And the unions, Plainview Old Bethpage, the union really pushed for their board to pass a resolution, and they did. Lace to the top, green. I know if green. If you're not on the website, on the Facebook page, you should go on it. It's a great site. Kevin Glenn and Anthony, I forget his last name, but they are 2 teachers out east, and they started Lace to the Top, and it's basically a way that teachers can stand up for this movement without getting in trouble with their superiors. You wear green laces, green these things, there you go. Yep. And it's a way to show kids, the kids that are taking these exams, that the teachers feel that they're more than a test score, and to show support for the kids both taking the test and not taking the test. So in closing, sorry. Maybe I'm better off not having it. Okay, so basically what can we do? Everyone agrees that expecting more from our children is a good thing. Helping our children reach their full potential is a good thing. We can't diminish the need to reach these goals in the right way without these harming side effects. It's like a medication that cures someone's heart disease while destroying the liver. They would never make it onto the shelves. And if they found out it was causing a side effect, they'd take it off the shelves. So we need a recall on on these policies that are hurting our kids. King does not seem to be willing to even discuss it. He doesn't want to, he says, just recently in an article, you know, I learned from Massachusetts that if you just stick with it, it'll eventually all smooth out. Everything will be fine. You just you ride out the storm and then it'll be fine. So he is definitely planning on hunkering down and just weathering this and getting out of it, and everything will just be good once the parents stop messing around and yelling at him, and, you know, he figures that it'll just go away. But it's not. We just got started. I just started this 6 months ago. So I'm just, you know, this is only my first act. So we do not plan on going away, and we're only growing bigger and bigger. But what I tell you to really ask yourselves, everybody has a role to play in this. Every position you're in, whether it's a PTA person, whether it's a nice person, whether it's a teacher, an administrator, everyone has a role that they can play in this and something they can do to help with this movement to stop all this. And you have to really think about what is it that I can do and do it. Do something that will move us in the right direction.